Emma Reed died on a Tuesday afternoon, at 3:17 p.m., in a private hospital room that smelled faintly of disinfectant and wilted flowers. The room was quiet. Too quiet. There were no hurried footsteps in the hallway, no anxious voices calling her name. The chair beside her bed was empty, its cushions still neatly arranged, as if no one had ever planned to sit there. Her phone lay face down on the small table, the screen dark. No missed calls. No unread messages. Emma stared at the white ceiling, blinking slowly as her breathing grew shallow. Pain came and went in dull waves, but what hurt most wasn't her body. It was the strange, hollow realization that she was leaving the world exactly as she had lived in it unnoticed. Somewhere across the city, the Reed family was gathered under warm lights at a charity dinner. Her father, Daniel Reed, was shaking hands with business partners. Her mother, Laura Reed, sat beside their niece, Sophia, gently patting her hand and reminding her to smile for the cameras. Emma's brothers were there too, standing behind Sophia like silent guardians. They were celebrating Sophia's first public charity appearance. Emma had once been told she was too emotionally unstable for such events. When the doctor finally came in and checked her vitals, his expression softened with professional pity. He called her family. The call went unanswered the first time. The second time, an assistant picked up. Emma didn't hear any of it. Her world was already fading. As her vision blurred, memories surfaced uninvited, sharp, fragmented, cruel in their clarity. Her 10th birthday, where the cake was chocolate because Sophia liked it that way. Her 16th, forgotten entirely because Sophia had a bad day. Her college acceptance letter, quietly taken off the table because Sophia was feeling insecure about her own results. Be understanding, Emma. Sophia has suffered enough. Why can't you be more mature? She had tried. God, she had tried. She had lowered her voice, swallowed her anger, folded herself smaller and smaller until there was barely anything left. She had believed, foolishly, that kindness would one day be returned. That blood meant something. That family was a word with weight. In the end, all it meant was that her pain was always second place. Her heart monitor let out a long, steady sound. And just like that, Emma Reed disappeared from the world. She woke up choking. Air rushed into her lungs as she jolted upright, her body slick with cold sweat. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs, as if trying to escape. Emma gasped, clutching the bedsheets, her fingers tightening around fabric that was far too soft to be a hospital blanket. She froze. This wasn't the hospital. Sunlight streamed in through pale curtains, illuminating a familiar bedroom, cream-colored walls, a neat desk, a bookshelf filled with old textbooks she hadn't touched in years. Her school bag rested against the chair, exactly where it used to be. Her room. Her childhood room. Emma slowly raised her hands. They were slimmer, unmarked by 4 bruises or needle scars. Her skin was smooth. Healthy. She stumbled out of bed and rushed to the mirror. The girl staring back at her was younger. Softer. 17, maybe 18. No dark circles from sleepless nights spent worrying about people who didn't care. No lines carved by disappointment. Her breath hitched. This was impossible. Then it came rushing back, not as confusion, but as certainty. She had read this story before. Not as a book she bought willingly, but as the life she had lived. A modern family drama where she was never the heroine. Just a disposable character designed to highlight someone else's tragedy. In the original story, she would continue to endure. She would keep hoping. Keep forgiving. And eventually, she would die quietly, miserably, forgotten. Emma pressed her palm against the mirror. So, this is the beginning, she whispered. A knock sounded on the door. Emma, her mother's voice called, cool and distant. Hurry up. Sophia's waiting for breakfast. There it was. The same line. The same morning. The same careless prioritization. In her previous life, Emma would have rushed. She would have apologized for taking up space. She would have smiled weakly and tried to please everyone. This time, she didn't move. She sat back on the bed, her expression calm, her mind terrifyingly clear. Love was not something this family had ever intended to give her. And she was done begging for it. If this world insisted on replaying the same story, then she would change the ending. Not by earning their affection, but by walking away from it, piece by piece. Emma stood up slowly, her resolve settling deep in her chest. This time, she would live. And they would learn what it meant to lose her. The Reed family's dining room looked exactly the same as Emma remembered: long glass table, minimalist decor, everything polished to the point of feeling cold. Morning sunlight poured in through the wide windows, but it did nothing to warm the atmosphere. Emma walked in late on purpose. In her previous life, she would have hurried downstairs the moment her mother called, afraid of being labeled rude or ungrateful. Now, she moved at her own pace. She pulled out a chair and sat down without a word. Sophia was already there. She sat beside Laura, wearing a soft cream sweater, her long hair tied loosely as if styled without effort. She looked up when Emma arrived and smiled, gentle, careful, the kind of smile that made people want to protect her. "Good morning, Emma," Sophia said quietly, as if afraid of startling her. Laura immediately glanced at Emma, her brows knitting together. "You're late." Emma nodded once. "I know." That was all. No apology followed. The silence stretched. Daniel Reed sat at the head of the table, scrolling through emails on his tablet. He didn't look up. "Eat quickly," he said. "Sophia has an early class. Ethan will drive her." Ethan, seated across from Emma, gave a small nod. "Yeah. We don't want her to be late again." Again. Emma reached for a slice of toast, buttering it calmly. She remembered this scene well. In the original timeline, she had asked why Ethan couldn't drive her too. The answer had been sharp and dismissive. "You're old enough to take the bus. Don't be so demanding. Sophia needs us more." This time, Emma didn't ask. Lucas, the younger brother, glanced between Emma and Sophia, frowning slightly. "You're quiet today," he said to Emma. "Did something happen at school?" In the past, that question would have opened the door to everything she'd been holding in. Today, Emma shook her head. "No." Sophia's fingers tightened slightly around her cup. Laura studied Emma for a moment, discomfort flickering in her eyes. "You shouldn't sulk at the table," she said. "If you're unhappy, say it properly." Emma looked up then, meeting her mother's gaze. "I'm not sulking," she said evenly. "I'm just eating." The words were simple. The tone was calm. Yet the effect was immediate. Laura looked unsettled. Daniel finally glanced up from his tablet, his eyes sharp. "What's your attitude?" Emma met his gaze without flinching. "I am." Ethan frowned. "Why are you being like this?" Emma finished her toast, wiped her hands, and stood. "I'm done. I'll head to school." She picked up her bag and walked toward the door. Sophia's voice followed her, soft and worried. "Emma, did I do something wrong?" Emma paused. In the past, this was where she would turn around, panic blooming in her chest. She would rush to reassure Sophia, terrified of being blamed for upsetting her. This time, Emma didn't turn back. "No," she said. "You didn't." And she left. At school, Emma moved through the halls like a ghost. She listened more than she spoke. She observed how teachers treated her differently when Sophia wasn't around. She noticed how easily misunderstandings had once spiraled out of control because no one had ever bothered to ask her side. During lunch, she sat alone, not because she was isolated, but because she chose to be. Her phone buzzed. A message from Laura. "Don't act strange. You're making things awkward at home." Emma stared at the screen for a moment, then locked her phone without replying. Awkward. That was what her silence was to them. Not hurt. Not exhaustion. Just inconvenience. She leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes briefly. She remembered the novel's trajectory clearly. Every major conflict began the same way: Emma reacting emotionally, Sophia crying, the family stepping in to protect the fragile one. So Emma removed the reaction. That evening, when she returned home, the tension was thicker. Sophia sat on the couch, eyes red, leaning against Laura. Ethan stood nearby, arms crossed. "There you are," Laura said sharply. "You didn't answer my messages." Emma set her bag down. "I was studying." Sophia sniffed. "Aunt Laura, It's okay. Maybe Emma just doesn't like me anymore. The words were gentle. The implication was sharp. Ethan glared at Emma. Seriously? What's your problem? Emma looked at Sophia. In her past life, she had hated this moment, the way all eyes turned to her, waiting for an apology she didn't owe. This time, she felt nothing. I don't have a problem, Emma said. But if you're asking whether I'll keep pretending everything's fine, no. Laura's face went pale. Emma. I'm tired, Emma continued calmly. I won't argue. I won't explain. You can think whatever you want. Daniel stepped forward, his voice cold. This isn't how a Reed behaves. Emma nodded. Then maybe I never was one. The room fell silent. Sophia's eyes widened, genuine fear flashing through her careful composure. Emma turned and walked upstairs, closing her door behind her. For the first time, the Reed family felt it. The unease. The quiet realization that something had changed and that they no longer knew how to control it. And Emma, sitting alone on her bed, finally understood something she had never allowed herself to think before. They weren't choosing Sophia because she was better. They were choosing her because Emma had always been easier to sacrifice. Not anymore. The next morning, Emma woke up before her alarm. For a moment, she lay still, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the house. In her previous life, mornings had always filled her with dread, another day of walking on eggshells, another chance to be blamed for emotions that weren't hers. Now, the dread was gone. What replaced it was something colder. Clearer. She got dressed neatly, tied her hair back, and left her room without making a sound. When she passed the dining room, she saw that breakfast was already laid out. Sophia and Laura were seated together again. Laura glanced up. Sit down, she said. We need to talk about last night. Emma poured herself a glass of water and took a seat at the far end of the table. There's nothing to talk about. Laura frowned. You embarrassed everyone. Emma took a sip of water. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult anyone. That tone, Laura stopped herself, pressing her lips together. You're being difficult on purpose. Emma met her mother's gaze steadily. I'm being honest. Sophia shifted uncomfortably. Emma, if I made you uncomfortable somehow, I'm really sorry. I never meant. Emma turned to her. Then don't worry about it. Sophia blinked. The words weren't cruel. They weren't sharp. But they landed harder than any accusation. Laura sighed, rubbing her temple. You're shutting us out. Emma nodded. Yes. The admission was so simple that Laura didn't know how to respond. Daniel entered the room then, adjusting his cufflinks. He took one look at Emma and frowned. Are we still dealing with this mood? Emma stood up. I'm leaving for school. That's it, he demanded. You don't think you owe us an explanation? Emma paused by the doorway. I explained for years. No one listened. Then she left. At school, Emma's detachment became deliberate. She stopped volunteering information. When classmates gossiped about Sophia, who attended a neighboring school but was well known through social circles, Emma didn't defend or deny anything. She focused on her studies, speaking only when necessary. Teachers noticed the change. Her grades, once inconsistent due to stress, began to stabilize. During a group project, a misunderstanding arose. A classmate accused Emma of not pulling her weight. In the past, Emma would have panicked, stumbling over explanations, desperate to be believed. This time, she calmly handed over her completed work and said, "You can check the timestamps." The issue ended there. That evening, Emma returned home to find tension waiting for her. Sophia was crying softly on the couch, Laura stroking her hair. Ethan stood nearby, jaw clenched. She's been like this all afternoon, Laura said the moment Emma walked in. Because of you. Emma set her bag down. What happened? Sophia looked up, eyes glossy. I heard from a friend that people think I'm stealing attention from my own cousin. I thought maybe it's because you don't talk to me anymore. Ethan snapped. Do you know how hurtful that is? Emma looked at Sophia carefully. In her past life, guilt would have crushed her chest. She would have rushed forward, apologizing, promising to do better. Instead, she asked calmly, "Did I say anything about you?" Sophia hesitated. No, but. Then it isn't my responsibility, Emma said. The room froze. Laura stared at her as if seeing a stranger. How can you say that? Emma's voice remained steady. Because I didn't cause it. Daniel arrived home in time to catch the end of the conversation. What's going on? Ethan spoke quickly. Emma's attitude is hurting Sophia. Daniel turned to Emma. Apologize. In the past, that word had been a command she obeyed without question. Now, Emma shook her head. No. Laura's breath caught. Emma. I didn't insult her. I didn't spread rumors. I didn't do anything, Emma continued. I just stopped pretending. Daniel's face darkened. You're grounded. Emma nodded once. Okay. The lack of resistance shocked them more than defiance ever had. She went upstairs without another word. In her room, Emma locked the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. She felt no anger. No fear. Only confirmation. They weren't angry because she hurt Sophia. They were angry because she no longer bent herself into a shape that protected everyone else's comfort. Emma sat at her desk and opened a notebook. She began writing dates, conversations, small details she remembered from the novel. Moments where lies would later surface. Scenes where she would once again be pushed into the role of the villain. She wasn't planning revenge driven by emotion. She was planning distance. Proof. Control. Downstairs, the Reed household felt wrong. Sophia stared at the staircase, unease crawling up her spine. Emma wasn't fighting. She wasn't crying. And for the first time, Sophia realized something terrifying. Emma wasn't trying to win anymore. She was letting go. And when someone who has endured quietly finally lets go, there is nothing left to manipulate. Emma closed her notebook and looked out the window at the darkening sky. She whispered to herself, I won't chase love that was never meant for me. And in that quiet room, her decision hardened into something unbreakable. She would survive this family. Even if it meant leaving it behind forever. Emma's grounding lasted exactly 1 week. Not because her parents suddenly softened, but because it was inconvenient to enforce. Daniel had business trips. Laura was busy managing Sophia's emotions. No one had the time to monitor Emma closely, and Emma took full advantage of that neglect. She followed her routine calmly: school, library, home. No detours. No rebellion. Just quiet compliance. That quiet, however, began to irritate Sophia. At first, Sophia tried kindness. Emma, I made extra lunch today, she said one afternoon, placing a container on the kitchen counter. You've been studying so hard. Emma glanced at it. Thanks, but I already ate. Sophia's smile faltered for half a second. Then came concern. You seem tired lately, Sophia said another day, voice soft. Are you sleeping okay? If you want to talk. I don't, Emma replied gently. Each polite refusal chipped away at Sophia's sense of control. By the end of the week, Sophia changed tactics. It happened on a Friday. Emma was called into the school office during last period. The vice principal sat behind the desk, his expression serious. There's been a report, he said, that you've been spreading rumors online about another student. Emma knew immediately who it was. She didn't react. She simply asked, which student? Sophia Reed. Emma nodded. May I see the evidence? The vice principal hesitated, then slid a printed screenshot across the desk. It was a fake account. The username was similar to Emma's usual handles, but not exact. The writing style mimicked her tone from years ago, back when she still tried to explain herself. Clever. In the original timeline, Emma had panicked here. She had cried, denied, begged. The school had issued her a warning anyway. The family had believed Sophia without question. This time, Emma looked closely at the screenshot. May I check the metadata? She asked. The vice principal blinked. The what? Emma met his gaze. The post timing. And the account's IP login history. There was a pause. We can request that, he admitted. Please do, Emma said calmly. I didn't write this. Her composure unsettled him. I'll look into it, he said slowly. You may go. That evening, the storm arrived at home anyway. Sophia sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes red and swollen. Laura hovered beside her. Ethan paced the room like a caged animal. Daniel turned when Emma entered. What did you do? Emma set her bag down. Nothing. Sophia's voice trembled. Why would you do that to me? I thought we were family. Emma looked at her quietly. You thought wrong. Ethan snapped. You really are jealous of her. Emma didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it either. She said, did you ask for proof? Daniel's jaw tightened. Sophia wouldn't lie. Emma nodded. That's what makes it easy. Sophia flinched. Laura stood abruptly. Enough. Emma, you're staying home this weekend. No phone. No internet. Emma considered arguing. Then she smiled faintly. Okay. The acceptance unnerved them again. In her room, Emma powered on an old tablet she had hidden away. She checked her email. A message from the school IT department had already arrived. The account used to post the content does not match your login history. Emma saved the email. She didn't forward it. Didn't print it. Not yet. Downstairs, Sophia paced her room, nails biting into her palms. Why wasn't Emma reacting? Why wasn't she fighting back like before? Fear crept in, not of exposure yet, but of uncertainty. Because if Emma was patient, if she was collecting something. Sophia swallowed. She had always believed Emma was weak. She was starting to realize she had mistaken silence for surrender. On Monday, the vice principal called again. This time, he asked Sophia to come in as well. Emma watched from her seat as Sophia walked past her in the hallway, her face pale, her smile forced. The truth didn't explode dramatically. It slipped out quietly. Inconsistencies. Time stamps. A login traced to a device Sophia used at home. The school decided not to escalate it further for the sake of reputation. But the damage was done. Whispers followed Sophia now. That evening, the Reed family sat in the living room, heavier than ever. Daniel's voice was low. Sophia, is there something you want to explain? Sophia burst into tears. I just felt so lonely. Emma stopped talking to me, and everyone started thinking badly of me. I panicked. Laura pulled her into an embrace. It's okay. You didn't mean it. Emma watched silently. There it was. The familiar pattern. But this time, Ethan avoided Emma's gaze. And Daniel looked tired. Doubt had entered the room. That night, Emma added one more page to her notebook. She will panic when ignored. She will overreach. She closed the notebook gently. Sophia's crack had shown. And once something perfect cracks, it never truly looks the same again. Emma lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling neither triumph nor satisfaction. Only certainty. She didn't need to destroy Sophia. She just needed to stop protecting her. And the rest would happen on its own. After the incident at school, the Reed house entered a strange, fragile calm. No one mentioned what had happened outright. Sophia remained gentle and apologetic, careful with every word. Laura hovered over her as usual, but there was a new edge to it, less certainty, more vigilance. Ethan grew quieter. Daniel spent longer hours at work. And Emma became busy. She stayed late at school, not to escape home, but to build something she had never allowed herself to want before. In her previous life, Emma had given up opportunities without protest. She had declined competitions because Sophia felt pressured. She had turned down leadership roles because her parents said it would cause unnecessary comparison. She had learned early that success made people uncomfortable. This time, she applied anyway. When the announcement for a citywide academic program was posted, a program that offered mentorships and scholarships, Emma signed up without hesitation. It required interviews, recommendations, and long evenings of preparation. She didn't ask permission. Laura found out by accident. You applied for the Horizon program, she asked one night, surprise sharp in her voice. That's very demanding. Sophia was thinking of applying too. Emma looked up from her laptop. Then she should. Laura frowned. You know how stressful competition is for her. Emma closed her laptop slowly. You mean comparison. Laura opened her mouth, then stopped. That's not fair, she said finally. Emma's tone remained calm. Neither was asking me to step aside every time. Laura stared at her daughter, realizing with discomfort that Emma wasn't asking for approval. She had already decided. Emma's interview went well. She spoke clearly, confidently, not about her family, not about hardship, but about her goals. When asked how she handled pressure, she answered honestly. I learned to rely on myself, she said. When support isn't guaranteed, you adapt. The panel members exchanged glances. A week later, the acceptance email arrived. Emma read it twice, then once more, just to be sure. She had been selected. She didn't tell anyone right away. At dinner that night, Daniel mentioned it casually. I heard your school submitted a student for the Horizon program, he said. Was that Sophia? Emma looked up. It was me. The table went still. Ethan frowned. You? Yes. Daniel's brows knit together. Why didn't you discuss this with us first? Emma put her fork down. Because it concerns my future. And Sophia? Laura asked carefully. Emma met her gaze. She has her own. Sophia smiled weakly. It's okay, Aunt Laura. Emma deserves it. The words sounded generous. But Emma noticed how Sophia's fingers tightened in her lap. Later that night, Daniel knocked on Emma's door. This program will put you in the spotlight, he said. People will compare you and Sophia. Emma nodded. They already do. That's not the point, he said. You should consider how this affects the family. Emma looked at him steadily. I am. Daniel didn't like that answer. The changes didn't stop there. Emma opened her own bank account using money she earned tutoring classmates. She updated her resume. She spoke to a counselor about early graduation options. Each step was small, reasonable, and impossible to forbid without revealing blatant control. Sophia noticed everything. One afternoon, she cornered Emma in the hallway. You're changing, Sophia said softly. Did I do something to make you hate me? Emma shook her head. No. Then why does it feel like you're leaving? Sophia asked, voice trembling. Emma looked at her for a long moment. Because I am. Sophia's face went pale. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. At a family gathering, a distant relative praised Emma's recent achievements. Daniel forced a smile. Laura looked conflicted. Ethan stayed silent. Someone joked, looks like the Reeds have another star. Sophia laughed lightly, but her eyes were glassy. That night, Laura confronted Emma in the kitchen. You're being selfish, she said, voice low. You're taking things that should be shared. Emma turned off the stove. Shared with whom? With family, Laura insisted. Emma faced her mother fully. When have you ever shared anything with me? She asked quietly. Laura froze. Emma continued, not unkindly, not loudly. I shared my space. My chances. My silence. This time, I'm keeping something for myself. Laura's eyes filled with tears, but Emma didn't reach out. Because she finally understood something essential. Reclaiming her life wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of survival. That night, as Emma lay in bed, she checked her email again, reading the acceptance message once more. For the first time, the future didn't feel like something she had to endure. It felt like something she could choose. And downstairs, in a house built on quiet sacrifices, the Reed family felt the ground shift beneath them. Because Emma Reed was no longer asking for a place. She was making one. And soon, she wouldn't need theirs at all. The Horizon program acceptance changed the atmosphere of the Reed household in a way no argument ever had. Success did that. It forced acknowledgement. Emma's name began appearing in conversations Daniel had with colleagues. Teachers called the house not for complaints, but for praise. Even relatives who had long ignored Emma now sent messages, congratulating her, asking questions, acting as though they had always been watching. The attention made Laura uneasy. She watched Emma carefully now, as if afraid that one wrong word would push her father away. She cooked Emma's favorite dishes again, the ones she hadn't made in years. She asked about school. She knocked before entering Emma's room. The gestures came too late. Emma accepted them politely, distantly, like a guest staying temporarily. Sophia felt it most. The world no longer revolved around her fragility. People praised Emma without immediately glancing at Sophia to see if she was hurt. The protection Sophia had always relied on was still there but thinner. Weaker. And fear makes people careless. It started with a phone call. One evening, Daniel summoned everyone to the living room. His expression was stern, his jaw set in a way Emma recognized from boardroom meetings he sometimes held at home. "I received a call from the school," he said. "And from a parent." Sophia's hands trembled slightly. "They asked whether we were aware of certain patterns," Daniel continued. "Repeated incidents. Misunderstandings that always seem to involve the same people." Laura frowned. "What are you implying?" Daniel didn't answer her. He looked at Sophia instead. "Sophia," he said slowly, "have you ever exaggerated situations to gain sympathy?" The question landed like a crack of thunder. Sophia's eyes filled instantly. "Uncle Daniel, why would you ask me that?" Emma watched quietly from the side. She said nothing. Sophia began to cry. "I've lost my parents. I've always been afraid of losing this family too. Maybe sometimes I spoke emotionally, but I never meant to hurt anyone." Laura rushed to her side. "Daniel, you're scaring her." Daniel exhaled sharply. "I'm asking because evidence keeps piling up." That word evidence made Sophia stiffen. Ethan spoke up, voice hesitant. "Dad, I've been thinking. About the past. About how often Emma was blamed." The room went silent. Laura turned to him, stunned. "Ethan." She always took it quietly, Ethan continued. "And we never checked. Not once." Emma felt something shift in her chest, not pain, not relief. Just confirmation. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. That night, he asked Emma to stay behind after dinner. When they were alone, he spoke without authority for the first time in her memory. "I may have been wrong," he said. Emma waited. "I prioritized peace over fairness," Daniel continued. "I convinced myself it was practical." Emma nodded. "It was easier." He looked up sharply. She didn't say it to hurt him. She said it because it was true. "I don't expect forgiveness," Daniel said after a pause. "But I want to fix things." Emma met his gaze calmly. "Fixing requires listening. Are you ready to hear things you don't like?" Daniel hesitated. That was answer enough. Laura tried next. She came to Emma's room late at night, eyes red, voice trembling. "I failed you," she said. "I thought I was protecting everyone." Emma sat on her bed, hands folded. "You protected what felt fragile." Laura broke down. "I didn't know how to choose." Emma's voice was quiet. "You did choose." That was when Laura realized something devastating. Emma wasn't angry. She wasn't resentful. She was done. Sophia's breakdown came days later. She was confronted at school again, this time with multiple inconsistencies. Friends began distancing themselves. Teachers watched her more closely. At home, the protection felt different now. Conditional. Sophia confronted Emma in the hallway one evening, tears streaking her face. "You planned this," she accused. "You wanted everyone to hate me." Emma looked at her steadily. "No. Then why is this happening?" Sophia demanded. "Because I stopped saving you," Emma replied. Sophia froze. Emma continued softly, "I didn't expose you. I didn't accuse you. I just stopped covering the truth." Sophia slid down the wall, sobbing. For the first time, no one came running. The Reed family began to feel the weight of what they had done, not all at once, but in pieces. In missed conversations. In Emma's absence at dinner. In the way she no longer reacted when they spoke. Regret filled the house like stale air. But regret, Emma knew, was not repentance. It was simply the pain of consequences. That night, Emma packed a small bag. Not to run. Just to be ready. Because the moment they finally realized what they had lost, she would already be gone. Emma's decision to leave did not happen with an argument. It happened with a quiet knock on her door. Laura stood outside, eyes swollen, hands clenched together as if afraid Emma might disappear if she loosened her grip. "Are you really leaving?" she asked. Emma zipped her bag slowly. "Yes." Laura stepped inside, looking around the room as if seeing it clearly for the first time, the bare shelves, the neatly folded clothes, the lack of personal touches. It struck her then how little of Emma had ever been allowed to exist here. "You can stay," Laura said urgently. We can start over." Emma paused. She didn't turn around. "Start over as what?" "As a family," Laura whispered. Emma finally faced her mother. Her expression wasn't cold. It was gentle, and that gentleness hurt more than anger ever could. "I don't know how to be your daughter anymore," Emma said. "You taught me how to survive here, not how to belong." Laura covered her mouth, tears spilling freely now. "I was afraid," she said. "I thought if I focused on Sophia, I could save at least one child from pain." Emma nodded. "And you taught the other one to endure it." Laura reached out instinctively, but Emma stepped back. That small movement broke something. Daniel tried next. He found Emma by the front door, her bag already by her feet. "You're making an emotional decision," he said, defaulting to the tone he used in negotiations. "You should think long-term." Emma met his eyes. "I have." "You're part of this family," Daniel insisted. "You can't just walk away." Emma tilted her head slightly. "You walked away first." "Just slowly." Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he had no argument. Ethan stood near the stairs, fists clenched. "I should have protected you," he said hoarsely. "I was your brother." Emma looked at him for a long moment. "I needed you when it mattered," she said. "Not when you felt guilty." Lucas said nothing. He just stared at the floor, shame written all over his face. From the living room came the sound of quiet crying. "Sophia." Emma didn't look in that direction. Some endings didn't need words. "I don't hate you," Emma said finally, addressing all of them. "But I won't stay somewhere that taught me my pain was acceptable." Laura fell to her knees. Daniel turned away. Ethan swallowed hard. Emma picked up her bag. As she opened the door, Laura called out, voice breaking, "Will you ever forgive us?" Emma paused, her hand on the handle. "I don't need to forgive you to move on," she said softly. "And you don't need my forgiveness to live with what you chose." Then she stepped outside. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. No slam. No drama. Just finality. Inside the house, the silence was unbearable. They finally understood it, not as a concept, not as guilt, but as loss. Emma Reed had not left in anger. She had left in clarity. And that was something they could never undo. Emma's new apartment was small. One bedroom, a narrow kitchen, a window that faced another building instead of a garden. The walls were plain, the furniture mismatched, the space undeniably modest compared to the Reed house. And yet, the first night she slept there, Emma rested more deeply than she ever had. There were no footsteps outside her door. No raised voices drifting up the stairs. No quiet expectation that she should be somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. The silence here was hers. She unpacked slowly, deliberately. Each item she placed felt like a quiet declaration of ownership. This was her space, her life, her choice. She pinned a simple calendar to the wall and marked important dates, program deadlines, exams, part-time shifts. No family events. No obligations written in invisible ink. The Horizon program began a week later. Emma took the bus every morning, earbuds in, watching the city wake up around her. No one knew her as the difficult daughter or the cousin who should be more understanding. Here, she was simply Emma, attentive, capable, and quietly determined. Her mentor noticed quickly. "You don't ask for help," the woman said one afternoon. "But you listen very well." Emma smiled faintly. "I've had practice." The work was demanding, but fair. For the first time, effort led directly to results. No one asked her to step aside. No one told her to dim herself for someone else's comfort. At night, she studied at her small desk, city lights flickering beyond the window. Sometimes, she felt a dull ache, not of longing, but of habit. Her body still remembered tension, still braced for conflict that never came. Healing, she realized, was not dramatic. It was quiet. Awkward. Uneven. News from the Reed family reached her anyway. Ethan texted once. "I hope you're okay." Emma read it, then archived the message without replying. Laura sent long emails, apologies, explanations, memories from Emma's childhood she claimed to regret missing. Emma skimmed them, then stopped opening them altogether. Daniel sent nothing. Sophia's name surfaced occasionally through mutual acquaintances. She had transferred schools. She kept a low profile. People were no longer eager to protect her, but they weren't cruel either. She was ordinary now. And Emma felt nothing about it. That surprised her the most. She had once imagined revenge would feel sharp, satisfying, something like justice. Instead, freedom felt like breathing after years underwater. One evening, Emma sat in a cafe near her apartment, laptop open, notes spread around her. A barista brought her coffee and smiled. "You come here a lot," he said casually. Emma paused, then nodded. "Yeah. I guess I do." "That's good," he said. "Means you've got a routine." Routine. The word settled warmly in her chest. Later that night, she stood by her window, watching rain streak down the glass. She thought of the girl she had been, the one who died quietly in a hospital room, still hoping someone would come. "I came," Emma whispered to the reflection in the glass. "For you." She didn't miss the Reed house. Not the rooms. Not the dinners. Not the version of herself that had existed there. What she missed, briefly and strangely, was the hope she used to carry. But hope built on neglect was never meant to last. Emma turned away from the window and switched off the light. Tomorrow, she had class. Work. Plans. A life that no longer revolved around proving she deserved to exist. And somewhere behind her, like a closed door she no longer needed to open, the past finally fell silent. A year passed quietly. Not the kind of quiet that comes from suppression or avoidance, but the kind that grows when a life finally settles into itself. Emma stood in front of a glass building one spring morning, adjusting the strap of her bag as she waited for the elevator. The Horizon program badge at her chest was slightly worn now, its edges softened by time and use. She had changed too, subtly, but unmistakably. She smiled more easily. She slept without nightmares. She spoke without measuring every word. Inside the elevator, someone asked, "First day?" Emma shook her head. "Last." The doors opened to a bright conference room filled with unfamiliar faces and a few familiar ones, mentors, peers, people who knew her not as a daughter or a cousin, but as a capable individual. When she gave her final presentation, her voice was steady. She spoke about resilience, about systems that reward silence, about how people adapt when fairness is not an option. She did not mention her family. She did not need to. Applause followed, not polite, not forced, but genuine. Emma bowed her head slightly, accepting it without flinching. That evening, she returned to her apartment and found an envelope slipped under her door. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Laura. Emma didn't open it right away. She set it aside, cooked dinner, watered the small plant on her windowsill. Only when the sky darkened did she finally sit down and unfold the letter. It was shorter than the emails. "I don't expect you to come back. I just wanted you to know that we see it now. We saw it too late." Emma folded the letter carefully. She felt no surge of anger. No triumph. Just a distant sadness, like looking at an old photograph and realizing you no longer recognize the person in it. She placed the letter in a drawer and closed it. Some acknowledgements did not require responses. Later that night, Emma dreamed not of the past, but of open roads, unfamiliar cities, unnamed possibilities. When she woke, sunlight spilled across her floor. She made coffee, checked her schedule, and paused briefly when her phone buzzed with a notification. A message request from an unknown number. "This is Sophia." Emma stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she deleted the message without opening it. Not out of cruelty. Out of finality. In the Reed house, life went on. The rooms were the same, but the silence was heavier. Laura cooked too much food and stared at empty chairs. Daniel worked later than ever. Ethan avoided mirrors that reminded him of the brother he hadn't been. Sophia learned, slowly and painfully, what it meant to stand without protection. And Emma walked forward. She didn't rewrite the past. She didn't redeem anyone. She didn't become kinder, softer, or more forgiving to prove she had healed. She simply chose herself. The novel she had once lived in demanded her suffering to justify someone else's story. She closed that book. This life, the one she built with distance, clarity, and quiet courage, was not dramatic enough for tragedy. And that was exactly why it was hers. She was never unlovable. They simply never deserved her.